This is the story of how Odysseus lost every man who sailed with him. Not to spears, not to monsters, but to hunger, and a choice the gods had forbidden. After the Sirens, after Scylla and Charybdis, Odysseus's ship sailed on over an empty, restless sea. The crew was fewer now. Their bodies were tired, their hearts even more so. But still, day after day, the oars rose and fell, and the prow of the ship pointed toward home. Odysseus stood at the prow, salt on his face, prophecy in his mind. In the land of the dead, Tiresias had warned him. On Circe's island, the sorceress had repeated it. Beware the island of the sun. Touch not the cattle of Helios, and you may yet reach Ithaca. Those words stayed with him like an echo he could not silence. The sea changed first. The waves grew uneven. The wind turned stubborn, shoving them off their path. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, thick as a wall. Food ran low. The men grew thin, their hands blistered on the oars. One morning, through the gray light, they saw land. An island under a break in the clouds. Green hills, gentle slopes, quiet golden shore. The air smelled of grass and wild flowers, not salt and rot. The men stared in silence, hope and hunger fighting in their eyes. Odysseus knew it at once. Thrinacia, the island of Helios, the sun god, who sees all things from the sky. Fear slid cold and sharp through his chest. He called his men together on the deck. "The gods have warned us," he said. "This is the island of the sun. Here live the sacred cattle of Helios. They are not ours to touch. Swear to me now, we will not hunt them, we will not kill them, we will not eat them. No matter how hungry we become, no matter how long we stay." The men shifted uneasily. Behind them, the clouds rolled closer. The sea rose. The wind howled. "We need shelter," they said. "We need rest. We cannot fight the storm in open water." Odysseus knew they were right. He agreed to land, but on one condition. "We will eat only what we can take without angering the gods," he said. "Fish from the sea, birds from the sky, roots and wild plants. But no hand will be laid on the cattle of the sun." One by one, the men nodded. They promised. They swore. The ship slid into a calm bay. They dragged it onto the sand and lit a small fire on the shore. Then they saw them. On the soft green fields of Thrinacia, the cattle of Helios grazed. Great, strong beasts with shining coats, pure white, deep burning red, horns curved like crescents of polished ivory. They moved in perfect lines, slow and calm, as if they knew they were untouchable. No ropes, no fences, no herdsmen. But as the men watched, they felt they themselves were the ones being watched. Helios was always watching. Days passed. Each time they tried to leave the island, the storm rose up again. Winds screamed. Waves hurled them back to the shore. The ship could not safely leave the bay. Their stored food ran out. They fished, hunted birds, gathered what they could, but the sky stayed dark, the rain cold, their stomachs emptier each day. Hunger became another monster on the island with them. One night, As the wind clawed at their small camp, Odysseus spoke. "I will go apart and pray," he said. "Perhaps Zeus will send us a wind to carry us home." He walked alone along the shore to a place sheltered by rocks. There he knelt, lifted his hands, and prayed. For mercy, for a sign, for strength to keep his men from breaking their oath. But he was exhausted. His eyes were heavy. As the storm roared around him, sleep crept over him like a cloak. Odysseus slept. Back at the camp, the men sat in the flickering light of their low fire. Their eyes wandered again and again to the sacred cattle grazing quietly nearby. Eurylochus, who had survived storms, giants, and monsters, rose to his feet. "We are dying," he said softly. "Not by sword, not by shipwreck, but by hunger. Is this better?" No one answered, but every man there felt the same fire burning in his gut. "Our king is brave," Eurylochus went on, "but he does not feel our hunger as we do. Would you rather starve slowly on this beach, obeying a command the gods themselves have trapped us against? Or risk their anger just once, to live?" He pointed toward the fields. "The cattle are many. If we choose the best, offer sacrifice to the gods, and pray for forgiveness, perhaps Helios will turn his eyes. Perhaps Zeus will spare us. But if we do nothing, we die here, and the sea will not even know our names." Hunger did what fear could not. One by one, the men stood. They looked once toward the place where Odysseus had gone to pray, and then they looked away. "No one must wake him," Eurylochus said. "Let him say he did not know." They took their weapons and went into the fields. The sacred cattle watched them approach, calm and unafraid. For a moment, the men hesitated. Then the first spear flew. A heavy bellow shook the air. The others followed. By the time Odysseus woke, the sky had cleared. He smelled it before he saw it. Smoke, fat, and roasting meat. He ran back along the shore. There, on the sand, his men sat around a great fire, their faces shining with grease and relief. And on spits above the flames turned the bodies of the cattle of Helios. For a heartbeat, Odysseus could not speak. Everything he had been told, every warning, fell on him at once. "The gods warned us," he said at last, his voice low. "Helios will not forgive this. You have killed the cattle of the sun. You have killed our hope." But the meat was already cooking. The men were already eating. They told themselves it was too late to stop now. They told themselves the gods would not notice. They were wrong. From his golden chariot high in the sky, Helios saw everything. His sacred herd cut down. Men feasting on what was forbidden. His anger burned brighter than the sun itself. He went to Olympus and stood before Zeus. "If you do not punish them," he said, "I will leave the sky forever and shine no more on gods or men." Zeus listened. He promised that justice would come. Back on Thrinacia, the signs began. The hides of the slain cattle stirred on the ground. The meat on the spits quivered, and low moos seemed to rise from the bones. The men were afraid, but they kept eating. At last, the storm broke. The sky cleared. The sea outside the bay lay smooth and blue. Odysseus and his men pushed the ship back into the water. They raised the mast, unfurled the sail, and let the fresh wind carry them away from the island of Helios. For a little while, it almost felt like a blessing. The sea was calm. The sky was bright. Then the first black cloud split the horizon. Thunder rolled across the open water. Lightning flickered, too fast, too bright, like the anger of a god. The wind slammed into the sail. Waves rose, taller and taller. Zeus had remembered his promise. A bolt of lightning crashed down onto the ship. The mast shattered. The sail caught fire. The hull split. Walls of water tore across the deck, snatching men into the sea. One by one, Odysseus's companions were swept away. The hungry, the desperate, the oath-breakers. Soon, only Odysseus still clung to the wreck. He lashed broken planks and the stump of the mast into a small, fragile raft. Alone, he rode the wild water. The storm drove him back toward the strait he knew too well, back toward Scylla and Charybdis. The whirlpool rose before him again, the sea spinning in a vast, dark circle. The raft was dragged toward the edge. At the last instant, a towering wave lifted him high. He leapt, caught a jag of rock, and hung there above the roaring throat of Charybdis. All day he clung to that rock, while the shattered pieces of his ship spun and vanished in the whirl below. At last, the sea grew calm. Exhausted, Odysseus let go. He fell back onto the floating wood and drifted. No crew, no oars, no food. Only his name, his will, and the memory of home. For days and nights the waves carried him, until at last he washed up on the shore of a quiet, green island. The island of Calypso, where a lonely nymph would hold him for 7 long years, while Penelope waited, Telemachus grew, and Ithaca whispered prayers for a king who did not come. But that belongs to another tale. On the island of Helios, Odysseus's men faced their greatest test and failed. The sea took them. Fate spared only one. For Penelope, for Telemachus, for Ithaca, the man of many wiles still lived. Alone upon the waves, Odysseus sailed on.